One of the most interesting issues that many men often have to face in life is the simple question of, what's going on in our mind? This is something that many men have dedicated their lives to understanding, and they often overthink it to such a degree that it turns into some kind of an obsession. Perhaps you have found this video because you're thinking about the same question. Fortunately, today we debunk these issues by looking at some of the most important psychological factors about women you definitely need to know. You will notice that during this video, you come across numerous aha moments where you might realize something or see the dating world through a completely new lens of clarity. So make sure you stick around until the end to not miss any of these facts. You will definitely be pleasantly surprised by how simple women actually are. But first, let's answer a very important question. Do men and women think differently? One of the biggest differences between men and women is often the thinking process they take to help them solve different problems. Women are notoriously emotional, whereas men are often more logical. But this trend also seems to have changed, and nowadays you can find logical women and more emotional men. The reason for this is actually affected by a variety of different facts. One of these factors is hormones. You see, women generally produce high levels of estrogen, and estrogen often leads to a lack of confidence, which automatically shifts the thinking process more emotional. Men, who are full of testosterone, often have more confidence, and since they see themselves as being confident, they often take a leadership role. However, it goes even deeper than this and can be even traced back to a small little part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is responsible for absorbing all the information and dispersing it throughout the brain. Generally, the weaker emotional right side responds first. This phenomenon occurs in both men and women, but women often react to the information given by the right side or emotional side of the brain. Alternatively, men often wait for the left side to kick in, and this logical side dictates their next moves. It is for this reason that most people believe men and women think differently. Fortunately, women have some interesting facts, which, if you knew them sooner, would have made life that much easier for you. So join us as we unveil 11 important psychological factors about women that will change your perspective and perception of the dating world. Number 1. Women are more emotional. Having already deep dived this section, we're going to keep it brief. Whilst you understand the logical reason for this phenomenon, there is no use in telling this to women. It is simply information to use to your advantage. You see, women are far more emotional than men, and they also tend to make highly impulsive and often erratic decisions. This is something that you will have to learn to live with, and the issue is that there is actually nothing you can do about this. However, instead of indulging in her emotional games and thinking patterns, you can simply observe and allow the situation to play out for itself. This is when you step in and make logical suggestions. So, when a woman does have an emotional response to something, know that you don't have the power to change your reaction, and that it might be best to just step back a little and wait for the storm to die down. Number 2. Women love a man who seems hardcore. This one might catch some of you by surprise, but excessive emotional damage and massive masculinity are a big turn-on for women. Women love a man who seems powerful and strong and someone who others might fear when they're in the same room together. This also borders closely to many psychological disorders, and it is no secret that most women love a damaged man. Yes, they might tell you that they don't want a man who suffers from trauma, but biologically, they want to become the nurturer. If this guy exudes excessive masculine behavior, she'll want to change him. This is not a reason for you to become a toxic person, as this facade eventually fades, and if the man doesn't make changes to improve himself, women will eventually outgrow trying to help him. So whilst she might find a broken and damaged man very attractive at a younger age, they also outgrow this phase in due course. Don't become the man she needs to save from a damaging lifestyle. Number 3. They love a man who plays hard to get. Number 3 and number 2 on this list go hand in hand, and you'll notice that women love a man who plays hard to get. Much like men love the chase, women also love it, and this is often what makes new relationships so much fun and creates the feeling of uncertainty. You see, the moment a woman feels completely certain and secure in a relationship, she doesn't have any real reason for staying. Well, this is unless you're a millionaire, but your resources will create enough doubt in her mind to keep her loyal. However, most women truly love it when a guy simply plays hard to get. But the game shouldn't seem as if it's being played. Your life should be naturally set up in such a way that you're focused on certain important things, which makes it seem as if you're playing some game of hard to get. Once you master this, you should notice some solid attraction between the two of you, and this might be a way of sparking even more attraction. Number 4. She doesn't want you to fully commit. By now, you should have picked up on this trend, but women love to play with fire and they often want to live on the edge. Whilst she tells you that she needs to be fully committed, she doesn't want you constantly telling her. In fact, this shows that you're insecure and often expect her to reciprocate with the same words to keep you secure. Yes, indeed, you should never commit any acts of infidelity, but you should never make her feel comfortable enough that the possibility is not there. This means that keeping in shape and focusing on yourself is very attractive, and it will constantly keep her on her toes as she is chasing you. From some of the previous points in this video, you should have realized by now that it is very important to keep her guessing and to make sure that she's focused on you at all times. This is what builds the attraction and allows the relationship to continue flourishing. Number 5. Women tend to play games that tease you if they like you. Much like you remember from school, women tend to tease a guy they find very attractive. And this trend doesn't stop just because the two of you now have turned into adults. You see, teasing is a great way for her to push your boundaries and perhaps try to find some of your boundaries that you're willing to break down for her. Every moment she teases you is also a test, and when you overreact to these tests, you'll often lose some of the attraction that she might have had for you going into the encounter. Teasing is a great way to see who your partner is and how far you can push them. Whenever a woman teases you, it's best to just play along and not overreact. In most cases, she's simply having some fun. But when she sees that your confidence is unshakable, she'll once again return to a state of respecting you, and this often seals the relationship. Ideally, you want to make sure that the relationship is secure for both of you, but you want her to be able to play her games and also be herself. Men will realize that initially this will run its course, and once it has run its course, you'll be back to being in control and leading the relationship. Many weak men often falter at this stage, and due to their emotional responsiveness, they tend to overreact and enter a state in which they choose to react emotionally to this. This will be very off-putting to women and can seriously harm your relationship progress and future. Number 6. Women are emotionally more vulnerable. Whilst many men often have an influential female figure in their lives, some men choose to follow the path of masculinity to such a degree that they embrace some of the teachings of the infamous Romanian influencers and his brother. Whilst there is some truth in the words of Mr. Andrew Tate, it is more the way his brother, Tristan, treats women that shows men how to go about dating. The idea is to be very masculine, but also to reveal the sweet and sensitive side that women want to see because they are automatically more vulnerable. You don't want your woman to end up being as hard as a rock and become more masculine. And to stop this, you'll need to allow her to vent her emotions and to often give her some support. This also means that when conversing with women, you don't want to raise your voice or get into any unnecessary arguments. You want to show her that you have a powerful masculine side that will provide and protect her, but she still has full freedom to vent some of her emotions, even if you don't have any clear answers to some of her worries. The idea is to understand that she will be more emotional. If you do understand something like her love language at the same time, this will be even better. But this can be very complicated for some men to understand, and if you'd like to see a video on this topic, make sure to let us know in the comment section below. Respecting the demeanor and personalities of each other is something that will yield great results, instead of adopting a bulldozer-like masculine personality that often dies down just as quickly as the spark started. Number 7. Women don't expect to pay. So this next one might garner a little more hate from some of the audience, especially those of a more feminine nature. However, the ugly truth is that women simply despise parting or sharing their resources with anyone else other than their close family and some of their very close friends. Unfortunately, this means that you'll need to be the one sharing the most resources, and it's also expected. This also entails you paying, especially for the first few dates, until there's something solid. However, you want to make her invest in you as well, and this is when you eventually need to choose that things need to be split going forward. The idea is that you want her to also invest some of her resources into the relationship. This ensures that she's invested, as we automatically give attention to things that have a relationship with our resources. But women might offer to pay on the first date, but they don't expect to be the ones doing so. If they do have to pay, check on the first date. You might notice that they don't give you a call again, or the situation between you might have changed where she now feels in control of the relationship. You don't want to ever put her in a position where she needs to take the masculine responsibility. This could have bad effects on the relationship, and eventually she will seek a partner that gives her the feeling of being a princess who is cared for. Number 8. She wants to feel like a princess. Have you ever thought for a second why women constantly focus on being a princess, especially when they're growing up? Well, women are far more susceptible to fantasy, and they often grow up with those fairy tale goggles, which enable them to see the world through a different set of lenses, where they imagine themselves being a princess, who are saved by the prince or the king himself. This fantasy takes a subconscious foothold and makes her desire this constantly, which also ensures that she's seeking a partner with qualities that can make her feel like a princess. Fortunately, being a natural gentleman, without forcing anything, should be more than enough for men to directly play into this fantasy. Once you start focusing on this fantasy that all women have, you'll be able to change the way in which you approach dating. Now, keep in mind that many women choose the more rebellious side of life, but this doesn't mean that the fantasy is faded. It simply means that her prince is now a little more rebellious as well. It's for this reason that observing and getting to know someone is so essential, which enables you to find out what her drive is in life. To better understand what drives people, you can sum it up into the acronym called RICE. Through this, you'll learn that every person on the planet is either driven by reward, ideology, coercion, or ego. Once you can establish the main driving factor for a person, it should be that much easier to play into their specific fantasy. Now, understanding the motivations of people goes quite deep, and if you'd like us to make a video on how RICE works, make sure to let us know in the comments. Number 9. Women naturally feel more sensations. Hearing this as a man might allow you to think that you can almost touch a woman in any place and she will feel more sensations. But this is about the physical. You see, women tend to feel much deeper emotional sensations as well, which is one of the reasons for them also being so overly emotional in certain situations. Ideally, you want to use the information from the previous and following tips as a way to touch some of her sensations and to ensure that you leave an active mark on her life. Keep in mind that you should focus on leaving a lasting legacy and memory of yourself in her life if you want her to become obsessed with you. Finally, it's worth mentioning that women feel more sensations than men in many different regards, which also involve the negative side of life. Whenever you face failure, it might hurt. However, if a woman is faced with the same failure, she emotionally obsesses over this, and this is often what can damage her. Number 10. She expects you to make the first move. Whilst society is slowly changing, and with all the women's empowerment being pushed through social media in different societies, men often think that women are now comfortable making the first move. However, this is not the case, and regardless of anything, she still expects you to be the one that makes the first move that draws her in. As we've already mentioned, she wants to feel like the prey, and she wants you to be the hunter. Every woman, regardless of how empowered or successful she is, still desires this. This is why certain men have some great success with women, regardless of their financial and socioeconomic status. However, once you have hooked her through chasing, she expects you to sit back for a while, and this is when she starts chasing you. You've now made her see who and what you are. Now she wants to be the one trying to win you over. The big problem with modern society is that most men often lack patience, and this becomes impossible. If you think that relationships are complicated due to all these moving parts, you should simply just take a few moments to absorb the information and check her behavior. Fortunately, women will show you what they want and desire. Number 11. Women hate boredom. Finally, one of the reasons we often tell you to ensure that you have a solid life and that you actually have one where you can bring someone in is that women hate being bored. Yes, some of them will tell you that they want to spend some time at home, but they also want an adventurous life, and you need to be the one who can provide this. As a man, she will love it if you have some close friends and you're invited to do things with your mates. She will want to be a part of this, and it allows her to see who you are from the perspective of those you hold dear. Women want to become friends with those they trust, and this is just to see how you are and what others think of you. Yes, this does mean that she can be heavily influenced by the opinions of others, but this will come back to you if you have some loyal and close friends. Women might seem complicated, and men might have exaggerated this to some degree. However, just being yourself and focusing more on you than others will often help to draw her in. But make sure that when you draw her in, you know how to keep her excited by watching some of the other videos.